Breaking a fapping addiction is hard, and if you've been told otherwise, I'm afraid you've been lied to. If you're really addicted to jerking off, breaking the addiction will be one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do in your life. Believe me, I've been there. I've been through the never-ending grinder of relapsing over and over again. I've been through the feeling of helplessness. I've probably felt more helpless than you're feeling right now. That sinking feeling like there's no end, like you're destined to be an addict for the rest of your life. But I was eventually able to turn around my addiction cycle, and I've been free of the compulsive need to jerk off for the past 5 years. A little disclaimer before we get started: I'm not a psychologist, and I'm definitely not a therapist. But if you stick around till the end of this video, you'll learn the exact strategy I used to finally beat my addiction. This exact strategy is what I like to call the dopamine replacement therapy, or DRT for short. You should know that when you jerk off, you're using the act to cope with a much deeper emotion that, for some reason, you don't want to feel. And from experience, these emotions are usually the negative ones. The usual suspects are the emotions associated with loneliness, boredom, fear, anger, disappointment, and failure. What this means is that when things hit the fan, you're relying on jerking off to feel better. Think about it. It's when you're lonely on a Friday night that you usually jerk off. It's when you're bored that you reach for your laptop. When you get rejected by a girl you approached, you have a wank to not feel like a complete loser. After all, pixels on the screen won't say no to you. When you're stressed at school, or when things aren't going well at work, or when your intimate relationship is a bit rocky, or when you're feeling sad for some reason, or when you try something, gave it your all, and fail at it spectacularly, these are the times you usually turn to your favorite fap site to feel better. So the role fapping is playing in your life is you're using it to avoid these emotions, and you're using it to bury them deep into your psyche. This is your addiction at the psychological level. On a biological and chemical level, though, what this means is that when you jerk off, you trigger the release of dopamine, which makes you feel better momentarily. This momentary dopamine gives you a form of high, which makes you not think about all the messed up stuffs that are happening in your life right now. The problem is that life is a series of these messed up events because messed up events and life comes as a package. To not experience these messed up events at all is to not live at all. So when you've decided that you've had enough of this addiction and you're doing the NoFap challenge, the difficulty comes when any event triggers these deeply buried messed up emotions. Once you're triggered, your brain instantly craves the dopamine you get from jerking off so you'll feel better. And this is the point where a lot of people relapse on their NoFap. But the approach of the dopamine replacement therapy is not to stop getting dopamine from jerking off per se. Its approach is to train your brain to get your dopamine from other healthier sources, so that, with time, you don't need the dopamine from jerking off to cope with messed up events anymore. This strategy is so simple, so counterintuitive, that you might think it wouldn't work. But let me convince you on why the dopamine replacement therapy works so well. The first reason why it works is that it makes your NoFap much more than a challenge. The mistake you can make, and have probably made in the past, is making your NoFap a challenge. With this way of thinking, you think of your NoFap success in terms of streaks. And thinking in terms of streaks hurts your NoFap more than you know. Here's why. If you relapse and couldn't meet up with your streak, you'll feel like you've totally failed. Because with the streak mentality, NoFap is all about numbers on the calendar for you. And assuming you have no relapse in between your 90-day challenge or whatever your goal is, if you haven't fixed why you got addicted in the first place, you'll likely go back to fapping after your challenge. Using dopamine replacement therapy takes the streak pressure off. Every day with every dopamine replacement therapy you do, even if you relapse, you know you're building a better dopamine alternative that will serve you in the long run. In this way, DRT transforms NoFap from a challenge into a way of life. With the DRT approach, you're not looking to achieve a challenge. Rather, you're trying to fix the root cause of the addiction, or at the very least, service the root cause cravings in a much healthier way, so that after the challenge, you are much more than you are when you started, and you have a much healthier way to getting your dopamine needs met. The second reason why dopamine replacement therapy works is that it makes sense neurologically. Your brain has built strong neural pathways to the habit of jerking off. What this means is that the habits become an automatic response for you. When it comes to the habit of jerking off, your prefrontal cortex has become weakened. This makes it extremely difficult to exert willpower when you're triggered. DRT is like building a much better and healthier road in your brain to get your pleasure needs met. The more you build up dopamine from the replacement habits, the more your prefrontal cortex becomes stronger neurologically, which results in more willpower, and the old fapping pathways become redundant. The third reason why DRT works is because its effects are universally true, and it applies to everybody. DRT is easy to apply. It works whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, whether you've been addicted for long or whether you're just mildly addicted. It works whether you're single or in a relationship. And not only does it work, it enhances all the other parts of your life. Now that you know why it works, it's time to learn how it works. But before we get into how DRT works, I want you to know that I make these types of helpful videos about dopamine, NoFap, and becoming the best version of yourself every week. I implore you to subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss these educative videos every week. When it comes to the science of dopamine replacement therapy, I've found that 3 dopamine sources are the most potent, the most readily available, and have the most lasting effects. These 3 dopamine sources are working out, meditating, and journaling. These 3 DRT habits work hand in hand. Meditation and working out rebuild your dopamine pathways. Journaling anchors working out and meditation. Why journaling is the anchor is that in the past, I found it extremely difficult to keep a consistent meditation and workout practice until I started tracking these habits in a journal. I had a scoring system in my journal, and I would reward myself for doing these habits over 70% of the days in a month. Journaling about the 2 habits effectively gamified the process for me, and this gave me an extra incentive to stick with these habits. Other things I would journal about at the end of the day are things I'm grateful for and why I relapsed if I did at all. What I started noticing as I habituated these 3 DRT habits is that I started getting huge satisfying dopamine from them. I started feeling better about myself, feeling better about my life, even when I wasn't totally staying off fapping. I started feeling like I had an alternate route to feeling better, and gradually I started gravitating towards the DRT sources of dopamine instead of the fapping source. And it finally got to a stage where even if I jerked off, it's a conscious decision to do so, and not out of compulsion. And that only happens about once a month or every other month, and usually when I'm not in a relationship. If you want to give DRT a try, I would say you should consistently do these 3 habits for a month, and see for yourself the immense changes they will have on your NoFap. Also, know that the 3 dopamine habits I shared in this video are not the only dopamine habits that can change your life. There are other easier and healthier dopamine habits that I outlined in this video up here. Check out the video to learn more about the dopamine habits that can change your life for the better. Thanks for sticking around until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.